I wanted to focus more, Reba, on what you were saying earlier, this feeling of rejection if a partner is like, yeah, I'm just gonna get myself off. And I'm curious if any of the other panelists have either felt that kind of rejection and found ways around it, or because I feel like it's something you can't really logic yourself out of. You can't just say like, well, this is how things work, and therefore I will tell my brain that logic says this, and that it's not rejection.
My if I'm not in the mood and my partner wants to get off, my partner will masturbate in front of me. And it's interesting to say that because that's not something I'm capable of doing. I prefer masturbating in private. I don't know why or what that is. It's like my dirty little secret, you know? But when that happens, I don't feel rejected. I'm like, are you gonna get yourself off? Great. Can I lick your nipples while you do that? Cool. And then he's good to go, and and we go to sleep. I'm completely content with that. On the opposite end of that, I do know that with my partner, when I'm turning him down, it can be perceived as rejection. So I whenever I'm not giving that, I try to make an effort to give in other ways and just remind my partner that he's wanted and remind my partner that he's loved. So that's just our dynamic, and I think that's something to continue to check in on, you know, with partners. I think we call it starvation when our partner needs something and we don't check in with that and have a conversation about needs and wants.
Yeah. And I think AJ, you made a really good distinction earlier about the difference between wanting connection and just simply being aroused. Not simply, but you know, those two things they don't necessarily have to overlap all the time, even though they can.
I think this might be kind of nuanced and difficult for me to articulate, but I think it's worth trying. Specifically, that came up for me because it happened to me, like I said, maybe like 10, 12 years ago, where a partner, it was the first time anyone had ever said this to me. I was like, I'm tired. And they were like, cool, do you mind if I masturbate next to you then? And I was like, yes, I mind. Are you kidding me? I mean, they asked nicely, but I was and still am to a degree a person who takes a lot of value in sex. I get my value from sex, like healthy or not, some of my value, not all of my value. And so I think at that time it was on a much unhealthier plane or unhealthier end of the spectrum. And it felt like, well, sex validates me. And if you're saying you don't need me to have it, then I'm not valid. And I'm wondering, even though like I understand it differently now and I don't necessarily feel that way, although a twinge of it is still there, I'm wondering how many people out there right now might be feeling the way that I did then. And that's why I brought it up at all. So I know it's a little more nuanced, and I'm wondering like what James just said, like reminding your partner or explaining, because I think my partner at the time had no concept that I would be feeling that way at all. Mm-hmm. And so how do you remind your partner of what you don't know that they're needing? If that makes sense.
That makes sense. And honestly, like from my 10 years in the sex toy industry, I've had a lot of people who are fairly new to sex toys or sex positivity in general. And they've had that kind of like, well, I'm not going to have my partner get a sex toy because then they're not going to need me or want me. Or like, I don't want my partner to get this thing unless we're using it together. And I think that's coming from the same type of place of where people really do, like you said, they're taking a lot of their value as being a sexy person, a person who's, sexually appealing. And so if a partner chooses not to have sex with you and does something on their own, then it's a rejection of you. So I think that is something that comes up for a lot of people. For me, I am more on the side of like, if I ask for something like a sexual connection and someone's like, no, I'm tired, I might feel a little rejected. But if someone asks me and I say, no, I'm tired, and they're like, well, can I masturbate? I'll be like, oh my gosh, yes, please go for it. Get it. Like, do your own thing. I'm so excited for you. But that's after, years and years of that. I don't know how, if like 15 years ago, if I would have responded in the same way. And there are a lot of people who aren't at that point. And, I don't know if it's like a thing to get to necessarily. Everybody's different. People are wired differently. There's trauma and all those things in the background that are going to change how people feel about rejection in general. So I don't think you're weird, Reba. I think that's totally normal. I relate more to the other side of it, of being the person who's just like, I want to do my solo thing over here, or like, you get it. But I don't think it's that uncommon. I think other people probably feel kind of rejected when people choose to do anything sexual that's not with them when they're that nearby.
Mm-hmm.
Reba, can I ask, since you said that you recognize a difference between how you felt 10 to 12 years ago and how you felt now, even if you're not, completely on the side of, do whatever. Can you pinpoint any feelings or any emotional transitions you made in that time that made you feel less like it was a rejection and more like, oh, this is just a sexual need and nothing to do with me or my value?
Well, I spent 10 years talking to people about their sex lives.
There is that.
I mean, I think just that, like, we don't, talk about sex in the general. We do here in Portland, a lot of us do. But outside of that, I haven't, we don't talk about sex that much. So we don't know what other people's experiences are. So I just spent the last 10 years hearing about other people's experiences, and that really helped. So I don't know that everyone has that luxury, unless, they're watching all the videos on our YouTube channel.
James, I see you nodding along. Is that resonating with you?
Yeah, I mean, it's so, a lot of just I just want to mention, like, a lot of the work I do out, in the arts in particular, is I do a lot of equity work. I've also done a lot of, and thank you, Amory, for mentioning trauma. I've done a lot of trauma informed work too. And the thing about trauma informed work is seeing everyone as a complete person, the whole person. What a person brings, what a person presents you with as peer support is that whole person is okay. That whole person is a complete being. And I think about it similarly when we talk about sex. I was in a polyamorous relationship for a number of years, and quickly discovered that one of my partners was moderately asexual. And, instead of shaming that person or making them feel like they're inadequate, it's just, hey, I'm asexual. Self-identification is self-identifying as asexual needs to be okay. Normalizing these conversations around sex needs to be okay. And there's multiple ways to find connection with a partner that doesn't involve penetration. It doesn't involve sex toys. It doesn't involve, and that's something I like to think about when we talk about this. It's okay if I like watching porn. That's my business. It gets me off. I can talk about that, but I can still, I'm at a point in my relationship where I want to be able to talk about that with my partner, or talk about seeing other beautiful people running around wanting other people without worrying about cheating or lying, or a lot of those dynamics are, in my opinion, brought in by the patriarchy and brought in by societal norms that were put in place before we really explored what it's like to be sexual beings and to be whole people. It's a bit of a holistic way of looking at it, but I'm essentially saying be you and tell people who you are. And when you date people, they need to accept you for who you are.